I'm sure you've heard of ransomware. If you haven't, it's extortion software that locks your computer and demands a ransom for release. Ransomware is becoming common these days. Just like other cyber crimes, it is affecting our lives and holding us hostage. Governments are doing nothing about it, either because they're unable to deter hackers or because they're somehow involved. But what's scarier? Perhaps the scariest of all is that certain large companies are secretly encouraging the rise of ransomware for their own profit. This is becoming increasingly known as the extortion economy. And we're all suffering because of it. Watch this video to find out how ransomware is impacting our daily lives. I'm Majed Tayfor and this is my YouTube channel El Dorado.
On January 11th, antivirus company Bitdefender made a staggering announcement. At last, it made a breakthrough. It finally found a flaw in the ransomware that a gang known Darkseid used to freeze computer networks of dozens of businesses in the US and Europe. Bitdefender offered hostage companies a free tool they can download to avoid paying millions of dollars in ransom. The announcement by itself was astounding. By the looks of it, Bitdefender achieved what governments couldn't. It identified Darkseid's flaws and offered the remedy. At least, that's how it appeared to be. Bitdefender wasn't the only one working on the problem. Two researchers, Fabian Wazar and Michael Gillespie, have also been working behind the scenes to find a solution. And they were just about to succeed. But when Bitdefender announced the antidote, Darkseid quickly redesigned its hacking software and rectified its errors. Once that happened, Darkseid became unstoppable. And no one was safe. Bitdefender unknowingly helped Darkseid fix its software issues. It made them even better. As soon as Darkseid called the bluff, they unleashed their wrath. And a new series of online attacks were released. This month, it paralyzed the Colonial Pipeline Company, the largest pipeline system for refined oil products in the US, prompting a shutdown of the 5,500-mile pipeline that carries 45% of the fuel used on the East Coast, quickly followed by a rise in gasoline prices, panic buying of gas across the Southeast and closures of thousands of gas stations. Bitdefender was to blame. It ignored the cardinal rules of the cat-and-mouse game of cyber warfare. Don't let your opponent know what you're thinking. Instead of keeping it low-key, Bitdefender publicized it to the world. If it wasn't for its revelation, the two researchers Wazar and Gillespie could have quietly contained the problem and restored Colonial's system with their decryption tool. Instead, Colonial had to pay Darkseid $4.4 million in Bitcoin for a key to unlock its files. Colonial's mishap gave evidence to the growing menace of ransomware. Businesses, schools, hospitals and government agencies all over the world have now become at risk. And no one is safe. To a certain extent, this incident reminded me of the movie The Fifth Estate, a 2013 biographical thriller film directed by Bill Condon at the news-leaking website WikiLeaks. The film starred Benedict Cumberbatch as its editor-in-chief and founder Julian Assange. Just like Assange, ransomware hunters Wazar and Gillespie attempted to prolong the attacker's ignorance, even at the cost of contacting fewer victims. Sooner or later, as payments drop off, the cybercriminals realize that something has gone wrong. However, what Bitdefender did is that it shouted from the rooftops how it has succeeded in solving the puzzle of a major security problem that decrypts a victim's data. Had they not disclosed the ransomware bugs they found, they could have decoded the data secretly without notifying the threat actors. But just like the story of the stupid who wanted to kill a mosquito on the cheek, instead of killing the mosquito, he kept slapping himself on the cheek. That's what Bitdefender did. And in the process, it looked even more stupid when Darkseid made a laughing stock out of it when it thanked it in a post on the dark web for identifying the flaws in its ransomware. According to non-profit newsroom ProPublica, publicly releasing tools, as Bitdefender did, pushed ransoms higher and made cyber gangs wealthier. In the early days of ransomware, when hackers froze home computers for a few $100s, they often couldn't determine how their code was broken unless the flaw was specifically pointed out to them, ProPublica said in an article it co-published with MIT Technology Review. Today, the creators of ransomware have access to reverse engineers and penetration testers who are capable of gaining entrance to highly secured networks, downloading decryptors, disassembling and reverse engineering it. All that in just under 24 hours. The attack on Colonial Pipeline, and the ensuing chaos at the gas pumps throughout the Southeast, forced the US government to rethink its cybersecurity strategies. Darkseid is said to have now been shut down by the US. However, cybercriminals often disband under pressure to avoid scrutiny and then reform under new names. They come back smarter. And they come back with a vengeance. Hence, the threat will always be there. According to ProPublica, private researchers have often been more effective than governments in fighting ransomware. Last October, Microsoft disrupted the infrastructure of TrickBot, a network of more than 1 million infected computers that disseminated the notorious Ryuk strain of ransomware. That month, Proton Mail, the Swiss-based email service, shut down 20,000 Ryuk-related accounts. Wuzar and Gillespie, who belong to a worldwide volunteer group called the Ransomware Hunting Team, have cracked more than 300 major ransomware strains and variants, saving an estimated 4 million victims from paying billions of dollars. By contrast, governments rarely decrypt ransomware or arrest the attackers, typically based in countries like Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. Ransomware has skyrocketed since 2012 when the advent of Bitcoin made it hard to track or block payments. The criminals' tactics have evolved since then, from indiscriminate campaigns seeking a few $100s to targeting businesses with multi-million-dollar demands. Attacks on energy businesses, in particular, have increased during the pandemic, not just in the US but also in Canada, Latin America, and Europe. Since 2019, gangs have been using a new technique known as double extortion. Upon entering a system, they steal sensitive data before launching ransomware that encodes the files and makes it impossible for organizations to conduct their daily activities. If the loss of computer access is not intimidating enough, they threaten to reveal confidential information, often posting samples as leverage. When the Washington, D.C. Police Department didn't pay the $4 million ransom demanded by a gang called Barbook last month, Barbook published intelligence briefings, names of criminal suspects and witnesses, and personnel files. Darkseid, which emerged last August, epitomized this new breed. It chose targets based on careful financial analysis or information gleaned from corporate emails. For instance, it attacked one of Tantal's clients during a week when the hackers knew the company would be vulnerable because it was transitioning its files to the cloud and didn't have clean backups. Typically, Darkseid's demands were $5 million and up. Last November, Darkseid adopted what ProPublica identified as a ransomware as a service model. Under this model, it partnered with affiliates who launched the attacks. The affiliates received 75% to 90% of the ransom, while Darkseid retained the rest. Together, Darkseid and its affiliates reportedly grossed at least $90 million. 7 of Tantal's clients, including 2 companies in the energy industry, paid ransoms ranging from $1.25 million to $6 million, reflecting negotiated discounts from initial demands of $7.5 million to $30 million. His other 3 clients hit by Darkseid did not pay. In one of those cases, the hackers demanded $50 million. Negotiations grew acrimonious, and the 2 sides couldn't agree on a price. The ransomware industry is responsible for a huge amount of disruption in today's world. Not only do these attacks have a crippling economic effect, costing billions of dollars in damage, but the stolen data acquired by attackers can continue to cascade down through the crime chain and fuel other cybercrimes. However, governments and law enforcement agencies appear to be ramping up their efforts to tackle ransomware offenders, following a year blighted by their continued attacks. As the G7 met in Cornwall in June 2021, Ukrainian and South Korean police forces coordinated to arrest elements of the infamous CL0P ransomware gang. In the same week, Russian national Oleg Koshkin was convicted by a US court for running a malware encryption service that criminal groups use to perform cyber attacks without being detected by antivirus solutions. The bottom line is that online data is no longer safe. Every week a new major data breach is reported, and most large companies around the world are experiencing some form of data theft. Remote work also opened the floodgates to ransomware. With workers outside the castle walls of their companies, criminals have it easier, and cryptocurrency hasn't helped. Security breaches have been on the rise over the past year. The vast majority of IT teams, more than 80%, experienced an increase in cyber attacks in 2020, according to a survey from security firm Sophos. Criminals are becoming more organized and ransomware attacks are becoming easier to execute. The rise of cryptocurrency, which is simpler to send online and less traceable than traditional money orders, has facilitated the trend. I remember what Stephen Hawking once said. "I think computer viruses should count as life. I think it says something about human nature that the only form of life we have created so far is purely destructive. We've created life in our own image." Thank you for watching. Be safe and bye for now.